In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics, catches up with legendary Kevin Youkilis. Not only a tremendous baseball player with the Boston Red Sox, what a career he had, two-time World Series champion, unbelievable hitter, but even better human being. What he's doing in the charity world is extraordinary. Plus, he's Tom Brady's brother-in-law. Bet you didn't know that one. Find out a few more surprises from Kevin Youkilis. I think you're going to really like this podcast. Welcome once again to the luxurious First Star Logistics Studios, and it's my pleasure indeed to welcome to the podcast the legendary Kevin Youkilis, otherwise known as Youk. I'm telling you, man, the Boston fans love some Kevin Youkilis. I mean, unbelievable career that you had, and is there a better place to play than Fenway Park?
There is no better place to play when you're winning. When you're losing, it could be one of the roughest places, but that's the beauty of playing there. The fans hold you accountable, and that's that's being an athlete, right? You got to hold yourself accountable when you're bad, you're good, and figure it all out through it all. So the fans are great. They've always been amazing to myself, all my family members. So we're very thankful to the Red Sox Nation and Fenway Park for all the great memories and all the great times we continue to have when we go back.
I'm from the Boston area originally, just a little bit northeast of Boston. My wife is as well. We're from neighboring hometowns, Stoneham and Wakefield, Massachusetts. And I've got two older brothers. I should say an older and a younger brother and a sister as well. And all of them, when they found out that I was going to be doing a podcast with Kevin Youkilis, they were like, "Are you kidding me?" They're gonna be all over this one now. You are a legend, a folk hero, to say the least, in Boston. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine, though. Let's go back to your days at Sycamore, right here in Cincinnati. Maybe even before that. Was it always baseball all the time for you, or were you a multi-sport guy?
Well, growing up in Tanager Woods, we played a lot. It was whatever sport is being played. I mean, we're doing it. I mean, we were playing backyard football. We were playing, backyard, like basically just street basketball, street hockey. We did it all. But organized wise, I grew up playing soccer and baseball mainly. I never really played organized basketball. I think I went to like a Louisville basketball camp one time, but never really got into the basketball thing. And then eventually played football in 8th grade and freshman year. But baseball was always my true love. I really love football, and kind of a funny story of that in Ohio football and craziness. We won the AAU World Series when I was 14 and going into my freshman football season. And I had called fun bunches, and I had to run all these fun bunches because I missed a week. But like I was living like the dream of like, and of course Ohio football is like, well, you missed practice, you got to run, and I'm like, well, I was running the whole time. I was down in Florida, sweating it out. So don't worry, I'm in shape, guys. But and that was kind of the reason I stopped playing football, because I was like, it overlapped, and if you miss weights and stuff like that. So pretty much that's why I quit football in a lot of ways, because there was a lot of mandatory stuff I had to miss through baseball. So my passion and love was always baseball, but I also love soccer. I played up until 7th grade in Sycamore and Sycamore Arsenal. So I love soccer, and I always tell kids that's the best sport to play when you're young for the footwork. It help you in every sport you play going forward.
So you go to Sycamore High School, and you have an outstanding baseball career at Sycamore High School. Your senior year, I think you bat like 345 or something like that at Sycamore, and I mean, you're just unbelievably productive. And you don't get drafted. Were you surprised you didn't get drafted out of high school?
No, not at all. Like I wasn't even getting looked at D1 schools really. So I was just trying to get into a D1 school. My buddy Aaron Cook, who I played with, grew up with, played on the same teams with.
Yeah.
The funny story was we faced him at Sycamore, and all the scouts were there. And I hit a home run onto the highway, and all the scouts were like, "Who is this guy?" Right? So they're like, and so one of the kids that was there, because it was a big deal, right? Sycamore, we had a good team. Hamilton was the state champions later on that year, but one of the players had to go, oh, that's Kevin Youkilis. You don't know, like, he's one of the better players here, you know. And so scouts didn't never love me. They never loved me until I got into college. But, you know, that was part of the beauty of it. It really being overlooked because I was too chubby or too fat and didn't have the prototypical body was everything that drove me to be the player I became down the road.
Yeah, that's amazing. That to the underdog, you know, or I'm going to prove people wrong. That's a huge motivator. There's no question about it. And your options ended up being Butler and University of Cincinnati for college baseball. Am I right on that?
That is 100% correct.
And you chose the Bearcats, thankfully, and it turned out to be a great deal for all involved. Tell us about your decision making process and a little bit about your career at UC as you remember it.
Yeah, so I actually, you know, my dad sent out letters to everyone. And funny story is the Xavier Musketeer head coach sent a letter back saying, you'll never be a scholarship athlete here.
Really?
So as somebody that is very competitive, I took that to heart every single time we played Xavier, where my coach, Brian Cleary, said, enough. All right, we know, we get it. You want to beat them bad. I was like, I know. I was like, sorry, coach. But yeah, I had Butler University. I went on a visit there. Very small, you know, a smaller school in Indianapolis. Beautiful campus, really cool history. Went to a basketball game, so that was really exciting. Where they filmed Hoosiers, and
right.
it was great, but it felt like high school again. And then I went to a winter camp, and Coach Cleary saw me. And literally after the camp was over and finished, I get a call about an hour later when I got home, and I'm like shaking, like nervous, like, oh my God, you know, like, and so he calls me and says, hey, would you let, you know, we'd really like to look at you, and, you know, we're going to offer you something to come here. And and my dad was a Bearcat. And so I was a huge Bearcat fan growing up. So I was like, yes. And it was Conference USA, a lot of good schools down south, Tulane, Southern Mississippi, Memphis, South Florida, UNC Charlotte at the time was pretty good. And, you know, there was a lot of good talent. It was funny, Louisville wasn't that good now, and now they're like a national powerhouse. But I just basically had those two schools that offered me some type of scholarship. And so I just said, you know what, the Conference USA and the competition is what I really wanted to do. You know, the MAC's a great, you know, conference in a lot of ways, but the Conference USA at that time provided the best competition that I could offer me to challenge myself in life. And so that's why I chose UC.
And what do you remember most about your baseball career at UC?
Just, you know, my teammates. My teammates were everything. Still some of my best friends to this day. Like that, every time we get together, it's always great stories, great memories, a lot of camaraderie. We stunk our freshman year. I think we played like 7 freshmen. We won like 18 games, and then the next 3 seasons we won 30 plus games. So I remember all those stories. And one of the coolest things, I had a Cal Ripken college career where I never missed a pitch from my freshman year all the way to my senior year, which was probably it's my most proud achievement in college. We were 1 run away from going on to a regional in extra innings against Houston in the Conference USA tournament my junior year. But yeah, it was junior or senior. I totally forget now. But yeah, I think the memories with my teammates, that was the biggest influence of my 4 years at University of Cincinnati.
So after your Cincinnati career, you're drafted in the 8th round by the Boston Red Sox. I think it was pick number 243, as I recall. And you get a big $12,000 signing bonus. You're a big bonus baby. That is the best value the Boston Red Sox have ever decided to make right there, is to take you at number 243 and to give him 12 G's. And boy, did that ever pan out? But when you did get drafted, how excited were you?
So yeah, I had a finance final, and I literally was so nervous because back then I had you had the flip phone or whatever phone you had,
right.
And two really close friends of mine that we went to business school, and they were in Astoria, like lived like a block away from us. They were in the same class, and I was too bashful to talk to the teacher about it. But they're like, just tell her, and I'm like, all right. So I said, hey, you know, I forget the teacher's name, but I was like, today's the MLB draft, and I might get a phone call that I got drafted, because back then it was just way different than it is now.
Right.
And so she's like, well, if you have to take the call, totally go outside, totally fine. And so I'm like, okay, great. So I'm like nervous the whole time. I finished my exam. I was like, man, I think I did really well. So I leave and I'm like just sprinting home. Like I'm flying back to my apartment and I'm just waiting and waiting. And then all of a sudden the phone rings and Joe Bick, who's my agent, is a Cincinnati guy in ProStar management. And he's like, Kevin, congratulations. You've been drafted by the Boston Red Sox. And I literally scream. I yell. I'm like, yeah. I went nuts. And he is laughing. And all of a sudden I'm like, what's next? And he goes, Kevin, that was the greatest. He goes, that was the greatest response I've ever had by a player that got drafted. So I think he knew from then that I was going to have success. I didn't know what was in store after that, but it was one of the greatest days of my life. And I remember going to Kenwood Mall, going to Lids, and getting a Boston Red Sox hat. And that was one of the most special days of my life.
You know, the thing that stands out about you, and I have to find the quote here. I thought this quote was outstanding that you had about what you are as a hitter. And, it was talking about, well, I'm going to foul pitches off. I'm going to do everything I can to make the pitcher work, to make him uncomfortable. Your eye was extraordinary. You weren't going to compromise, the strike zone. And talking to another Boston Red Sox, I had the privilege of talking to Ted Williams one time about, splendid splinter, man. It was unbelievable. And talking to him and about hitting. And what he said was, the biggest thing for me, I had 20/10 vision. Don't you have like 20/10, 20/11 vision, something like that? Don't you have crazy eyesight?
I don't know anymore. I might not have that anymore, but I don't have glasses yet. But yeah, no, I had unbelievable vision. I was blessed.
That's incredible. Because Williams said, really, I could really see, like the seams of the baseball. I could see the spin. Could you actually pick up things like that at the plate? Like he talked about, he said it was just amazing. He said, I would hit a baseball in BP and tell somebody, go get the baseball and you'll see a mark, right by the sweet spot of the baseball between the seams. That's where I made contact, and you'll see a mark there. I'm like, get out of here. He goes, no, seriously. Were you that way? Could you see like that?
It was definitely not as profound as that. With Ted, I mean, he had some crazy stuff he said. I was like, really? Like, I play with guys that say stuff like that too, and I'm like, I could never say something like that. I could pick spin pretty good. I think that would, and then there's some days you don't pick it up at all, and then you got to force yourself to try to really hone in on it. But that's why you see guys with bad swings some days. They're just not picking up on the spin. But yeah, I would pick up on sliders. I would see a little bit of the, people say like you see a red dot. I didn't necessarily see that. I just saw the rotation of the baseball a little different. But yeah, so I had that vision a lot of times, but I always picked up on little things, like little nuances of pauses, like in a motion, like a guy would pause on a curveball or a changeup, and I would notice it, and I would see it, very visual. And so then I would tell myself, okay, he's slowing up on his changeup. So if I see that, I'm going to look out of the window where he's throwing, and then all of a sudden, if I see that pause, I know to stay back just a hair back. And so I would sometimes go to my teammates and tell them that, and that's one of the best things that I thought that my value to my teammates a lot of times was picking up on those things, being very perceptive of those little nuances that would help them out too, and then talking with them about it. Today's game is a little different. Everyone's relying on a coach to give them information versus these little talking points, but there's still the same great players of today's game sit in the dugout and notice those things. They see if a guy's tipping a pitch and stuff like that. So being perceptive and having good eyesight is very crucial to becoming a great Major League Baseball player.
Today's baseball, home run or strikeout, I mean, their approach is so much different. I mean, you were like, you're going to hit the baseball and you're going to hit the baseball hard. You're going to put the ball in play, and you're not going to make life easy for the opposing pitcher. I mean, today's baseball, what's your thought process on it? What do you think?
It's a different game in some ways. It's basically a lot of development. And my issue is the youth ages and the development and what we're teaching. Less guys are raw. It's actually a good thing to be pretty raw. As you get into your teenage years, a lot of the problems start way before Major League Baseball. They're at the youth levels, and people are trying to mold players to swing like a major leaguer. Well, the body types aren't there yet. It'd be like telling an offensive lineman that's 10 years old to do what an offensive tackle is doing. And, it's like, you know what, just go out there and just hit that guy. Like, you try to teach the skills,
Right.
but they don't have the skills, right? They don't have that ability, right? You can't tell a 10-year-old quarterback to do what, my brother-in-law would do. And it's just little things like that. So I think that's the hardship is we need to just teach a love of the game. We need to teach a passion for the game. And the biggest problem we're teaching is everything's in a vacuum. We're analyzing too many things in a vacuum. Analytics are great. I'm a firm believer in analytics. There's a lot of great information out there that can help players, but there's also a lot of information that can backtrack players too, to think in the wrong direction. Yes, the best result for a team is a guy hitting a home run because they can't catch it. But with that, if you're always trying to drive the ball out of the yard or into the gaps every single pitch, you're not making the necessary adjustments to the pitch itself, because every pitch you can't drive. That's
Right.
just the bottom line. And being a great hitter is basically buying into the notion that you cannot drive the baseball every time. But when you get that pitch, you have that swing and that ability to drive it. So you're ready for that pitch every single time that I'm going to drive this pitch. But then, like, when you get to 2 strikes, if that pitch is moving down and away and you try to take the same swing, you're either going to roll over or you're going to swing through it. And my big coaching points are teach adjustability of the swing, teach guys how to have a really good game plan going in of what they want to do, and not let the pitcher dictate their at bat. So I think that what's wrong in today's game is, one, people are making too many excuses that the pitching's better. Well, when I played 10 years before that, the pitching was not as good as when I played. So you have to adjust. The game adjusts, and why are some players still performing at a high level? Why is Mike Trout launch angle gone down astronomically this year, but he leads every single category almost?
Right.
So people aren't answering those questions. People aren't talking about those things. And baseball-minded people that have been in the game for a long time know a lot of this stuff to be true. Now, we just have to teach guys how to compete and just have fun, because at the lower levels, that's what it's all about. And as you grow and get better, get stronger, then we can start implementing little things individually. Too many guys are teaching one swing path, one strategy, versus working with a player individually. It's a very individual game, and everyone's bodies, everyone's muscle movements are very different. So
Sure.
You have to apply it in that way.
It's all real interesting. Another guy that I got to know over the years. In fact, I played some charity softball games with Pete Rose. And Pete Rose, slow pitch softball, he'd hit the top half of the softball, line drive over second base 25 straight times. I don't care if it was 8-foot arc, 10-foot arc, 12-foot arc. He'd find the top half and crush. I mean, just unbelievable eye-hand coordination. And I asked him, I said, Pete, a couple of questions. Who was the most physically talented pitcher you ever went against, and who was the toughest matchup for you? Oh, totally different responses. He's talking about Koufax and guys like that. But I can't even remember the name of the guy that he said gave him the most difficulty. He said it was just the mechanics, Pete's height, this guy's height. He hit the baseball on him until like later than anybody. He said he just had a hard time picking the baseball up on this one guy. Do you have anybody like that? And who was maybe the most physically talented guy that you went against, and who maybe was the toughest matchup for you?
Yeah, it's that every hitter, if you ask who their toughest pitcher is, always has a different answer. And mine was Jason Frazier, a reliever. The guy owned me. He was a small guy, threw hard, threw 95, but he hid the ball or just painted on me, and I just couldn't figure him out. And every time I thought, okay, I'm going to look fastball away, it'd be a fastball in. If I'm looking fastball in, it's a fastball away. And it was just a nightmare. And I don't know why, but and he was a good reliever and had a long career, but most people would never say that name, right? So every guy has that one pitcher that gave him a lot of problems. That is the one thing that people don't understand is, yeah, you could throw 100 miles per hour, but if you're throwing me a straight 100-mile-per-hour fastball and I see it out of your hand real nice, I love that pitch versus a guy throwing 90 miles per hour with good movement and location. That gives me fits, because what people don't understand is the plate. When a guy has movement, the pitch starts here and ends up here. The pitch starts here and ends up here. The plate now looks this big versus the actual distance. And that's where guys will talk about why like a Greg Maddux was so tough, is because he could throw you a two-seam that would start it down the middle of the plate, and you literally hit it, it'd be 3 inches off the plate, you foul it off your foot. Then he would throw you one that starts about a foot off the plate, and next thing you know, it's on the corner, and you're like, how do I even react to that? So, for me, the most gifted, Felix Hernandez, when he came up, was so gifted. He was throwing 97 consistently. He had a great changeup that was like 92 miles per hour, and he just had a really good curveball. He was really, really refined and an amazing young talent, and had an amazing career. And so those are the type of guys, but he had command too. So the problem also with this game today is so many guys are trying to chase the spin and the velo that they don't locate. And so when they're going good and everything's great, but when they're going bad, it turns into an absolute nightmare for the team because they're walking 3 batters, hitting a guy. Now we got to go to the bullpen. And now the longevity of the season plays out for those teams that don't have those pitchers that can command.
So you're with the Boston Red Sox, Uke, and you win 2 World Series, 2004, 2007. I mean, plays off the hook. Boston's going nuts, and I'm right there with everybody. What was that like when you were part of those World Championship baseball teams?
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
The time of my life. I was 25 years old, and then it was 3 years later. I mean, I'm in my 20. I mean, luckily my brain was hopefully fully developed. I don't know if it was by 25, but just making it to the major leagues was the pinnacle of everything for me. The wiffle ball games in the backyard, 2 outs, man on third, World Series Game 7, those scenarios go in your head, and I was on cloud 9 just by being in the major leagues, and then in my first season, being a part of a World Series championship team, it was unbelievable. It was just the reaction of the fans. Like I said, I was 25 years old, so it didn't really sink in until after, and seeing so many people taking memorabilia to the gravesite of their loved one that didn't get to see it, and the people crying, and emotionally, and and then it hit me like, wow, you're changing lives, you're changing emotions. I just wanted to go play baseball. I love the game of baseball, and I just wanted to play baseball and win as a competitor. But then you realize how much it meant to families, how much it brings families together. The Red Sox, brought families together to watch games, to talk about the game. And I'll never forget when we landed and we went from the airport to Fenway Park, the YouTube video, The Streets Have No Name, where all the cars stop and everyone starts walking. That's what it looked like on the highways. The construction workers were on this brand new building, huge, all stopped and came and were applauding. And I'm literally like, I have goosebumps now thinking about it. And I'm literally like, this is the most amazing time of my life. These people, and are so proud of our achievements, of everything we've done. And then to do it again in 2007 and go on the duck boats, it was even icing on the cake because I got to actually play a lot more
Right.
in the whole entire playoffs and have more of a hand in it. I played a little bit in the Angels in 2004, but not enough to enjoy it as much as getting up to bat and having control. It's a lot more fun and less nerve-wracking when you can get at bats and play in the field. 2004 was it was the most nervous I think I've ever been because I couldn't get any at bats. In the ALCS, I was off the roster and then back on the World Series.
How about this memory? In your major league debut, you're in Toronto, and your second at bat with your parents 2 rows behind the dugout watching your major league debut, you go yard. One of 7 players at that time in Red Sox history. I'm not sure if that's still the situation, but 7 players that in their major league debut went deep. What was that like?
It was amazing. I still remember it was Pat Hankin, Cy Young Award winner. He wasn't a Cy Young Award pitcher at that point. He was near the end of his career, but we won't tell anyone about that, right? The story gets way better if you just put Cy Young. But
Sure.
he did 2-1 changeup in my first at bat, and I popped it up, and I just missed it. I took a great swing, and I literally was yelling. I was like, in my first at bat, I'm like, hit the roof, and I start sprinting, thinking it's going to hit the roof. Little did I know how high that roof is. It's not Tampa. The Sky Dome is way higher. And so I get the same pitch in my second at bat, and I just get on top of it just enough and hit, in the second deck, homer. I mean, I didn't even feel the ball hit the bat. It was like the sweetest feeling, and I ran around those bases as fast as I could. And it was everything. It was all the sacrifice. It was all the hard work. It was, my parents, being there, like they were always there to support me. My mom and dad went to all of our games, like at University of Cincinnati. They were my biggest supporters. So for them to be there was even more emotional. It was 4 days ago, the anniversary, May 15th.
Wow.
And my mom still says she gets tears just watching that video. So it's just a special thing that you get to share with your family for the rest of your life. Just that moment of that home run and all the laundry that my mom did washing those uniforms, which is funny because I was scrubbing my son's dirty pants for his game tonight. And I'm like, no wonder my mom has arthritis in her fingers. I'm like, I single-handedly gave my mom arthritis.
Oh, man. So 2008, 2009, Theo Epstein declares, and I got to agree, and I think most people would in baseball, that statistically, you were the most productive player offensively in the game. I mean, your numbers were crazy in that 2-year span. And in 2008, 2009, 2010, the only guy with a better OPS, the legendary Albert Pujols. So, I mean, what kind of a stretch were you in those 3 years, and what was your mindset like? How locked in were you?
Well, I was very fortunate in 2004 to have a lot of great veterans that teach me about how to be a Major League Baseball player, how to be a professional, how to go about it, how to train. I went to Athletes Performance, which is now Exos, in Arizona. They worked on shaping and molding your body to be the top-notch athlete. Never got the body quite like the top-notch athletes with. I got the best of this body that I was given. But
you're looking good, Scott. You're looking good.
We always joke around about that. But yeah, and I just kept trying to learn the game. The best advice I can give to any young ball player out there is educate yourself on the game as much as you play the game. Watch the game, ask questions. Ask as many questions to great players that are a little older than you, and just pick the brains of people. Not everything that person might say fits you, and you have to learn who you are, what you are. And I learned, which is funny because I got a unique batting stance out of it in a lot of ways, but I really learned on what worked for me. I took what people did really well, like a Manny Ramirez I got to watch every night, which taught me so much about hitting. We never even talked about hitting. Like Manny and I hardly ever talked hitting. I would watch, I'd be intent. I might ask him a question here and there. He didn't really answer it that well, and that was kind of his MO. It was kind of fun with that. But we would sit and listen, and then David Ortiz I'd talk to, and I'd go talk to Trot Nixon, and I would talk to all these guys about hitting. And we would sit down there and just talk about hitting over and over and over. And like a guy like Mike Lowell, he was a pull hitter, but he did a drill with a tee where he put it close to his body and just hit the ball up the middle. And I always laugh like, Mike, you never did. And he's like, well, no, I want to make sure that I keep my hands inside, because if I don't, then even as a pull hitter, I can't keep the ball fair. So we always had all these great discussions. Dustin Pedroia and I were always, rats in the batting cage, and we played next to each other and talked hitting. And being a student of the game is what got me better. And the players around me got me to be the player I became too. It's contagious. When you're around great players and that love to compete and love to win, they make you that much better. So for me personally, it was the people around me. It was me. It was the individual and being okay with being an individual and looking like an outcast and you're in a weird batting stance, because to some people, that's a very hard thing to do at times.
Right.
And so that, the mix of the coaching, my peers that are around me, and just trying to learn more and more, and making things easy. I think that is one of the key things for professional athletes is routines are everything. If you don't have good routines, if you don't have good habits, you'll be all over the map and you won't have consistency. So that's the things I learned in order to become that player that I became.
And, you were a complete player, not just a great hitter, but all the accolades. Nick, go on and on. I was, doing some research on you, and there's like 30 things, counting Hall of Fames and all your individual accolades, team accolades. It's incredible. Your career is unbelievably extraordinary. But I forgot about the Gold Glove. You won a Gold Glove. 2,002 chances without an error. Major league record. So talk about being a top-notch, as good as there is in the game, defensive player at first base to complete your game.
Well, I was lucky. I came up as a third baseman. My whole entire career at University of Cincinnati, I played third base. In the minor leagues, there was a point where they put me at third, second, and first base in 2005 to try to get me into the major leagues to be able to be that versatile player where they could plug me into a stacked already lineup. So they worked on that, and I didn't want to be average. I was tired of being average at third, so I worked really hard. I gained confidence through good coaching that worked with me on working on my hands versus being boxy and trying to get in front of the ball. When you're young, you teach the kids how to get in front of the ball, try to do it, alligator, bring it up, throw it. But as kids advance, they have to learn how to be more one-handed and be versatile with their hands. I didn't learn that until later in my minor league, major league career to be more handsy. And once I learned that, my confidence levels went to the roof. I figured out good footwork. I figured out how to use my hands more, not having to get in front of the ball all the time. And so that all the hard work I put into third base allowed me to be the best first baseman I possibly could be, because my attitude was, I'm going to be, I always joke around. It's like it's the Happy Gilmore line where it's like, I'm a hockey player playing golf today. I was like, I'm a third baseman playing first base. And so my mindset was, don't get lazy over here. The ball will eat you up. These big lefties have top spin. They're going to hit one, and you're going to embarrass yourself if you don't stay quick on your feet and play it like third base, because at third base, you don't field it cleanly, it's a good chance you're not getting the guy out. So I took the same attitude over across the diamond. And so I didn't take anything for granted over there, and I treated it like third base. And just having that mindset of moving my feet, getting to the ball, making the plays, instead of like letting the ball play me and just knock it down and flip it to the pitcher. My mindset was, no, don't think about that pitcher. They never get over half the time. So I want to field this ball cleanly, and I want to make the play and get it out.
Really interesting. Who was your favorite teammate / teammates? Is there anybody that I'm sure you've got a bunch of friends that you played with and great players, but is there anybody that's kind of above and beyond?
Well, I got to play with Sean Casey one year. And the mayor of Cincinnati, for many reasons, that was fun, because when I was in college, he was coming up, and his personality alone is why you love him as a teammate. Right. But just everything about the way he went about it as a professional, I loved Case. I wish we got to play for 10 years together. Still close to this day. So he was probably one of my favorite teammates as a person and all that. Pedroia was one of my favorite teammates just because it was contagious of what he did. We had such a great rapport, with being on that right side of the infield. Mark Bellhorn, my rookie year, we hung out a ton, and I learned a lot from him too. It was so funny. He would always after the game, he'd be doing this, and we were ready to go out, and I'd be having a beer, and I'm like, Bellhorn, what are you doing? He's like, I'm like, stop. No. We'll get that tomorrow. And so I learned what a lot of people told me I was great at was game's over. I play as intense as anyone could be, but then it was done. Move on. Can't do anything until the next day. And so, Pedroia, he was always showing up at 1 o'clock, being out there. He was always ready. Another great one that I got to play. I mean, there's so many great ones that we got to play with.
Sure.
But Trot Nixon was another favorite teammate that I got to play with. Just a funny guy, super competitive, and just love playing with him. And still to this day, just every time we text or whatever out of the blue. I mean, it's same rapport back and forth, making fun of each other, joking around. So I think there's so many of them. I don't think I can name them all. But yeah, it was very special, and I had a lot of great teammates that I enjoyed picking their brains.
Talk about super competitive. Your brother-in-law is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Just won his seventh Super Bowl. What's it like being the brother-in-law of Tom Brady? And give us a story that maybe a lot of people may not know about the real Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, Tom's an introvert in a lot of ways. It's funny.
Really?
It's he's not. I mean, he's really good at like answering and doing all the stuff. Yeah, but he really is just very chill, very laid back. My wife and him have very similar like introvert personalities at times, but very personable and very out there. And and he does a really good job of playing the role of answering to a lot of people. The greatest part for me, and I joke around, is I loved being a Major League Baseball player because of the competition. I wasn't big on the fame. I did not like fame. That was something I don't think I'll ever like or enjoy. And so having a brother-in-law that's more famous is so great, because like we'll go out and no one will even notice me, and they'll notice Tom. I'm like, yes, this is great. But yeah, I mean, some of the funny stories, like we'll play paint. Like I remember we were in Baker's, we were down at this Bahamas, like this amazing, beautiful place, and we're playing like ping pong against one another, and you could see the competitiveness on both sides of like just going at it. And he did not want to lose to me at all. So like, and baseball players, that's our jam. Like we're like, we love it, right? I hand and we're playing, and he's like, man, like he's getting frustrated, and I'm loving it. I'm like laughing, because it's so funny when you watch, like Dustin Pedroia is a great ping pong player too. So when you watch baseball players get on the ping pong table, it's hilarious because, you can return it because you're quick to see it. So he's like hitting a good shot and I return it and he'd be like, and we're just going back and forth. And I think that was one of the fun parts of what we do. And, compete. We like, the whole family competes. There's the dodgeball thing that got blasted out there. Where it was girls versus guys in our family, and that was funny. We race. I was the fastest in the family. Thank goodness. I had to bring it home for Cincinnati.
I love it.
But yeah, it's one of our jokes we have, my wife and I, is like if one of our kids is not as fast as the other, we're like, which gene is that? So we talk about that one too.
So you and your wife go out to dinner with Tom and his wife Giselle. Not many people can say, yeah, I went to dinner with Tom and Giselle Brady. I mean, what's that like when you're out in public? I mean, can you guys enjoy yourselves out in public, or is it people just hounding you guys all the time? What's it like?
It's not fun. And it's not fun because I've been through it on the other end of it.
Yeah.
And I know how it is, and I know the feeling. It just depends. Some people are really good about it, but a lot of people get really weirded out by fame and people. I've actually grown to learn that I don't care how famous you are. I care about the character
Sure.
and the person behind it, because fame is just a bunch of people who don't know who you are. And so there's been a couple. There was paparazzi one time in New York, and that was the last time I ever want to see paparazzi in my lifetime again, because luckily I kept my cool on that one. But I almost lost my cool enough to probably get a loss that gets me. But yeah, it's tough. They don't get to have a normal lifestyle, which is not easy. And I don't envy that one bit. And it's very tough. I don't think people realize, and they're very fortunate on many other things in life to live a certain lifestyle that they get to live. But the lifestyle of not being able to go out in public sometimes is tough.
So Tom Sr. called Boston radio after the schedule came out and said, yeah, we're looking forward to that fourth game in New England when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are we'll beat the Patriots handily and go 4-0. So that's Tom Sr. And Tom, to his friends and family, Tommy. Do you call him Tommy or Tom? But at any rate, Tommy, yeah, everybody close to him, right, calls him Tommy. Tom Sr. kind of set the bar for competitiveness. I mean, is that where it comes from? Is Tom Sr. that competitive a guy?
It's
your father-in-law?
My father-in-law. Yeah, we joke around about our father-in-law, and loose lips. Sometimes we always He's always the one that just always goes on the radio. Like, I don't say anything. I don't tell any background stories other than the ones like these, like that are fun and whatever. I don't get involved. Like, if Tommy tells me something about what we're doing on offense this week, or we sit down and I'm like, you're not getting it out of me. I don't want to be the one that I get a text message like, Kevin, what are you doing? I'm like, but I also know, because I dealt with the Boston media, so I definitely know not to say anything to anyone about it. But the competitiveness comes from his mom.
Really?
Galen Brady is the one that is the most sweetest person on this earth. But when it comes down to competition, woo. She's from Minnesota. She's got that Midwest competitive spirit. So it's actually more his mom than his dad.
Wow, that's a good little tidbit there. How long do you think he'll play? I mean, you probably know him as well or better than most. I mean, do you think he'll play a couple more, do you think?
I think, yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd get it wrong. I've gotten it wrong, probably for the past 4 years. I think it'll all depend on the health in a lot of ways. I know he had the knee surgery this offseason.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think there's, health is, it's going to come down to health, because once it becomes, this is how my career ended, and most guys' career ends, is once it becomes more work than actual fun, because you're dealing with pain and you're dealing with a body that's just not working anymore. That's probably when it'll probably end. But yeah, hopefully he comes back from the knee surgery. He's feeling good, and I'll see him here in July. So I'll see how he's working out and doing. He's always working out on our trips and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think it's all going to come down to health. I think 45 is right around the corner, and I know that's I think a benchmark of the oldest quarterback, or I don't know. I think there's something like that. But as long as he stays healthy, I think he can play. But it will, once the health overtakes the mental health, that's when it goes down.
Right. I think it's George Blanda that played quarterback when he was in his mid-40s, and whatever the pace was there. More of a kicker than a quarterback at that point, but due to injury, he played, had to start some games, I guess. A little bit different than Tom's situation, the way he's performing. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And there's no two ways about it. You're out in California. Fill everybody in on what you're doing. What's your life like out in California, Hugh?
Yeah, so I live out in a town called Los Gatos, California. We moved out here in about 2012-ish, I think. And I got 3 kids. I got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old boy, and my daughter's 15. She's a freshman in high school. So I just got back this weekend from a dance competition in Reno. The first daughter-father going off to a dance competition. So that was a very good learning lesson for a boy of 3 growing up. And seeing the other side, and then my young, and so it's fun. It's fun seeing her. She's done an amazing job in dance, and she's just amazing. She's got such a beautiful spirit, and I'm very lucky to have a daughter that's 15 years old and not giving me hell yet. She's amazing. And then my 6 and 8-year-old boys, they're just nonstop sports. I mean, they play flag football, they golf, baseball, basketball. You name it, we put a club or anything that we can do, we give it to them, put a ball, and let them go at it. We got a Little League game tonight. So I'm a Little League coach now and having fun with that. And then I have, as you can see behind me, Loma Brewing Company is my brew pub that I started here 5 years this August. And we're in the plans right now to grow and do a production brewery. So it's going to be outside the Bay Area, more in the Central Valley. With more news to come, and we're really excited about this. But so yeah, we're growing the brand of the Loma Brewing Company. I also have a Loma Coffee Company in Portland, Oregon. Loma-coffee.com. You can order retail bags on that site. So as I joke around, I've started 2 companies where we wake you up in the morning, we put you to sleep at night.
That's classic. Now, I know your brother Scott. Is he still working with you in your business ventures?
Yeah, so a buddy of mine with the company called Spot On, we brought him on as a POS, and they're kind of a newer company. And then literally this year, my brother got a job with them. So it's pretty funny, the connection there. I'm on the board of advisors. So we're back working together in a little bit. So he sends me emails of things I need to do for the Spot On. So it's kind of fun that we're back together working.
I admire you, Uke. You have a great baseball career. You reinvent yourself. Now you're an entrepreneur. I mean, man, you're a man of many talents, and you're also very philanthropic. Talk about your Hits for Kids charity that you've done for a long time, and what you're doing with it now.
Yeah, Uke's Kids. We started it in Boston, and started based on the amount of philanthropy that goes on in Boston and how many people are willing to donate for great causes. What we try to do is, what I found was there were so many great causes out there. I didn't want to be specific. So what we did was we kind of made it open to doing charity events for different causes and keeping it under one umbrella of kids and 501c3s and just basically having fundraisers and writing checks and making a difference. We try to focus on more underfunded programs throughout the Boston area. And then now what we're doing here, we've done a few things here. We partnered with different charities and helped different charities out in the Bay Area with the same causes. One of the things I'm focused on going forward is trying to do charity work to help underserved baseball players. We're trying to formulate this. It's going to be like a youth travel ball team called Grind to Shine, and it's going to help give these young kids travel ball, like pay for their travel ball expenses and for lessons and training and stuff like that. So a lot of Uke's Kids going forward will be designed to help these kids get into the baseball that might not, stay within baseball because the costs associated with baseball right now are astronomical.
Right.
So we're trying to create not only just a travel ball for these kids to play on, to compete, but also to help them pass when they get out of the program. Try to get them into colleges, try to help them with mentors, and trying to get them to utilize all the resources here in Silicon Valley. I mean, there's so many great people out here that can help, so many underserved areas, and that's kind of our mission going forward.
Are you still marketing the 7 Uke Blanc wine? I mean, that's great. It was all proceeds are going to charity, and if not, how can people get involved with your charity, Uke? How can they be participants?
Yeah, the one thing is always just follow me on Instagram. I don't even know what I don't know if it's Kevin Youkilis, Greek. I don't know, Gigi. I don't even know what my handle is. I hate to say it. I got off Twitter completely. I say follow me on Twitter, but I don't post anymore on Twitter. I actually just deleted all my Twitter stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Instagram. There's going to be more information coming here soon about Grind to Shine and doing things like that. But Uke's Kids, I think we're working on the website that might turn into that too. So there's more information to come. But if you always follow me on Instagram, all the information I post is either about my business or charity stuff. So there'll probably be more information there in the next few months.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure catching up with you. You're a heck of a human being, not only an athlete, just a great person. And I know you love your Cincinnati sports, and we love you, man. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, like you said, my family would be honored that I got to be on a podcast with you. I mean, we have grown up. We've been super lucky. We had Joe Nuxall that had the passion and love behind that radio and the excitement of what a homer is. And to listen to you on the radio, it's my favorite thing. I mean, listen to Dan is always great, and he's such an amazing guy. But like you in the background, like go, like that's my favorite part of listening to a Bengals game on the radio.
I appreciate you very much, sir, and nothing but the best for you and your family. And in these crazy times, everybody stay safe and healthy, man.
Yeah, you too, and. Yeah, tell everyone we said hi back home in Cincinnati, and can't wait to be back there in July.